Well, I was having Stu calm me down, I think, backstage, and I'm going to need to listen to his therapeutic voice today. Same with Fred's as well. Uh, I thought we'd come here this season, boys, especially after the season that we've had, potentially getting a result out of this. And I'm just extremely, obviously, disappointed. I'm sure all of you are. Get your comments in, guys. Get liking, get subscribing, all of that. Um, it was just an awful performance, and of course, I'm sure you've all got Liverpool mates. Um, you lose 7-0. It's just so hard to take. Anyway, I hope you're all good. I hope you've had great Sundays, and apart from this result, of course, and I hope it gets better for you. It can only go up. Can only go upwards. Stu, Freddie, appreciate you being here, boys, and talk to me, Stu. Calm everyone. Go on.
Do you know something? Matches like this allow your brain to operate without the benefit of intellect. And we need to show an intellectual side and a calmness of what's kind of opened up before our very eyes today. You have to, sometimes, whether you like it or not, you have to credit the opposition. You have to look at what they have done and the stranglehold they put on the match. And Gary Neville was right. We probably played okay for 20 minutes, but we didn't take our chances when we had them. Although, let's be fair, Bruno's header was massively, massively difficult to steer.
I thought that was in
into
first
the
time
far
around
post.
when we saw it. I
It's
thought it was in.
hugely impossible to steer in. And then, the Rashford chance, if he'd put a little bit more power on it, he probably would have scored. Casemiro went too early. But I think at the overall 93 minutes, 94 minutes, we played 20 minutes of football, and we've known any fan right from when I started watching football, if you play that limited amount of football and don't really offer anything apart from what we offered, you're always going to struggle. Now, I'm not here saying that Klopp put on a masterclass. I'm not going to say that Liverpool put on a masterclass. But what happened was, for some unknown reason, we just couldn't get to grips with the game. And we didn't want to get to grips with the game, which is a bit more difficult to stomach, really. And there are types of games where, I talk about it all the time, you guys know, that you have to disrupt the opposition, and we didn't do any disruption.
Do that at all, did we? No.
There was no.
In fact, I felt like we were doing that more after the game was completely out of our hands.
That's right. There was no. I mean, Gary Neville was saying that we were doing certain fouls at the right time. We weren't. We just, Luke Shaw was, didn't play particularly well. Look, nobody played particularly well. So I'm not going to go. Actually, I'm not going to single out players. I think if we single out players, it'll be a problem for us today. I just feel we allowed Liverpool to take a stranglehold on us. And there are some times in a game, and I have to say this, and people won't agree with me, and I get it, and that's absolutely fine. You've got to take sometimes you've got to take a sending off, because that sending off sends a message to that one particular player who's destroyed.
We were lucky not to have two probably today, really.
But we should have done it. We should have been a bit more firm in the tackle. We should have been a little bit more tougher all around. And, sometimes when you're walking off and you left a player crumpled up in a heap, it sends a very, very strong message to the opposition. And before anybody jumps on me on this, it could have been a completely different game with 10 men. And I'll tell you why. We'd have adjusted the way that we played. We'd have played a more conservative game. We would have played a less free-flowing game. That when we did have the ball, we were quite free-flowing, and we would have stifled Liverpool. And we may well have just only conceded 2 goals rather than 7. There's always ways and means of winning football matches and preventing big score lines. And sometimes you take a sending off, it presents a score line, because you really do have to adjust the way you play. And we needed to adjust our way of playing. And I was looking at Ten Hag, and people are talking about naive tactics. There's no tactics out there from us or Liverpool. You know, you can't tell me Liverpool's tactics. All they did was overrun us. Now, if somebody wants to put that down as tactical play, fair enough. But all they did was overrun us, and we didn't have the stamina or the strength to soak that up, which is what we normally would have done. So if it was me, and I'll be 100% honest with you, if I was in that game, I would have absolutely crunched somebody, gone off the pitch, and then hopefully it would have changed the pattern of play, because you have to change the pattern of play. It's a bit drastic, I know. People won't agree with me. They won't get it. But it works. It does work. So, but it's one of those. And sometimes hats off to Liverpool, you know. We were well beaten today. You know, people, whichever way you look at it, we're well beaten. So we move on, and let's not worry about it.
Yeah, we have to move on today for sure. It's just, oh man, it's tough. It's just tough. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. I get what it looks like. Everyone knows that it's not. It's not difficult, but just to be so bad, it's just a really difficult, a real kick in the nuts today. I think
See, we've got people in a group here saying, "I don't want to see Bruno wear the armband again."
Yeah, it's a massive overreaction. A massive overreaction.
We're lucky Bruno and Shaw weren't sent off.
Yeah, it's just scapegoating, because obviously they probably were two of our worst performers today. I think they're all sort of culpable. Very, very difficult. You know, we're coming at half time. I thought we'd been okay. I thought tactically, I think we'd been okay. And you know, as we've seen many times this season, I thought we'd come out in the second half and really turn it around. Cheers for joining us, Sean. Very, very difficult one to take. Fred, yeah, same question for you, brother.
Yeah, no, it's. I think results like this, they ground you. They put things into perspective a little bit. I think at the end of the day, the performance was atrocious, but it's 3 points at the end of the day. I think if you look at the bigger picture, we've come such a long way this season. You know, we've won this time last week. We were, you know, on the in Wembley stands lifting a cup. So it just shows that we've come a long way, but we've got such a long way yet to go. I actually think that for 40 minutes we did have a game plan, and we actually initiated it quite well. But as soon as that first goal went in, just before half time, the boys' heads just went and they didn't recover. And the second half was just abysmal from start to finish, unfortunately. Every second ball has been won, first and second ball has been won by Liverpool. There were a lot of scrambles. You know, they were getting the benefit out of all of them. I think one of the goals, Shaw kicked in the back of our defender, fell straight on the plate for Salah to score or whoever. It was just one of those days, bad day in the office. And unfortunately, when you go into Anfield, you can maybe able to push out afford one player to have an off day. When your whole team is playing as bad as they are today, then you've got no hope. And unfortunately, Liverpool have got the capabilities and quality to capitalise on that, which they did. So it was just bad day in the office. I think no one did themselves justice today. Casemiro looked off. Again, I agree with you. It's difficult to pick. I don't think you should just pick out individual players in this regard. You've got to just move on, pick yourselves up. I think it's going to be interesting what Ten Hag says after the game. I'm interested to hear about that. I hope the boys are looking forward to their 12K run tomorrow, because if it's anything like after the Brentford game,
they'll be running for a month.
Exactly. It could be double that. It could be double that. But look, I think is it Betis we've got midweek or next match midweek? Yeah. We just have to focus towards that. At the end of the day, like I said, it's 3 points. If it was 1-0, if it was 7-0, the outcome is the same. We build on it, and they just look at the bigger picture. We've come strides from last season, and it just happened. It's awful to hear or to see that it came against our worst rivals. It's very unfortunate. But yeah, or just look on to the next game. We're a long way from it. All this talk about title talk and whatnot, it just, I think today hopefully quashes that, because we as fans knew that wasn't the case. It was just media trying to create a narrative that was never there.
Well, this
Exactly.
is a perfect opportunity now, isn't it? You know, we're doing so well, get absolutely crushed, and this is exactly kind of the reaction that the media
Exactly.
will capitalise on. Anyway, not about them. Let me just say, first of all, a tough day. We'll try and break it down as best we can, but do a special shout out to these three for joining me. It must be very difficult to turn up. It makes my job easy, boys. Yeah, I can host it, but you guys are having to give me the emotion, and I really appreciate you three being here. Sean, good to see you.
Just a quick one, Mark. You know, Julio come up with quite a good point about the red cards. Sometimes, Julio, you've got to. You can't worry about things like that, mate. You have to act in the near rather than.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Although I do agree with you to an extent, pal. Sometimes you got to take one and sit out for 3 games and away you go. So
we took 7.
It was a good point. I just wanted to make the.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We took 7 in the end. Sean, yeah, as I said, over to you, buddy. Thanks for joining me. Tell me how you're feeling.
In a word, bad. I'm very disappointed. It was a very off United to the points that were made already. Previously, I think a goal down, you'd be saying, yeah, let's go back and punish them now. Almost, this was the United mentality all season so far. After the first couple of games, it was, if we go 1-0 down, it's nearly a case of how dare you score a goal against us, and the team usually power on, and they really didn't today. It really hurts. They didn't even bring the Vaseline, Liverpool, today. It really, really hurts as well, to get just spanked like that at Anfield. Something that stuck out to me before the game was all the pundits on TV were talking about the stadium as if the stadium was their best player. And it struck me that obviously the form United were in and the form Liverpool are in at the moment, on the opposite side of that, that they have to talk about the stadium being their best player, but my God, that wasn't the case today. They showed up. We didn't, lost their heads. And like I said, instead of punishing a team for scoring against us, they just bent over and the heads went. And yeah, it was really disappointing performance. And I mean, look, I could sugarcoat it if I wanted to. I could come on, but you know me here by now that I wear my heart on my sleeve, and that was a really disappointing performance. I'm not taking away from the team that I love and I support all my life, but at the same time, I mean, one thing I won't do is come onto this podcast, put glitter on shit, and wrap it up in a bow and tell you it's a birthday present. Like, this was poor today, and that's what it is. And I am disappointed, and yeah, maybe I am, going to say some controversial shit here, but that's what it is. It's real, and getting beaten 7-0 like that hurts. So yeah, I wouldn't like to be in that training ground tomorrow.
No, not at all. And I thought, we've seen Erik ten Hag all season. You can tell he's very calm in his approach, very, very articulate. But I can imagine behind closed doors, probably give him a few words, and certainly will now. Wouldn't like to be there tomorrow. That's for absolute sure. Yeah, good points. Appreciate obviously the sadness today. It's been a terrible one. We'll try and keep this one relatively short, but get your comments in, guys. Get liking, get subscribing, even if it means that you are over the moon that we are feeling this way. Lots to talk today, I think, about tiredness, fatigue, catching up with us. As well as the fact that we didn't turn up today. I think that was very clear from the off. Casemiro couldn't string anything together. I thought he was very, very poor. The defence looked second to every ball. Got caught out on a number of occasions. And just absolutely no spirit going forward. I think you saw that, in the couple of points that we made with the header. A hard one to do, but I think on a good day, with a little bit more energy, may have put that one away. Same with Rashford, a little bit more energy, probably didn't have to take the extra step and maybe hit it a little bit better. Do you think that we might, I get it, one game, got to take it with a pinch of salt, move on, and, but do you think, Stu, that those signs were really showing today?
Well, you'd be a fool to say no. That's just the way it is in football. But it's interesting to know that you can get a drubbing at any time, at any place, and anywhere in football. You can. We just happen to have got a drubbing against the team that we all despise. We've been here, me, you, Mark, and Freddie in particular, been here when City have given us an absolute kicking, and we've been more aggressive and more angry about it.
My luck was starting to take a turn, wasn't it, boys? But here we are.
Yes, that was right. But it's very, very difficult, even as a professional athlete, to play high intensity elite football matches every 3 to 4 days, which is what we have done since we've come back from the World Cup. And then you've got players that are playing in the World Cup as well. It will start to take its toll on your legs, and it will start to take its toll mentally. And we just looked physically drained today. That's mentally and stamina-wise. And when you are like that, then your first touch is never as sharp as it should be. Your thought process is a split second longer than what it normally is. Your eyes, they drain quickly, and you can't see further than maybe a millimeter at times, because that foggy your brain is, and almost you're walking around as if you're tipsy because you can't get any strength in your legs. And your brain can't get any oxygen around your body. It's a really horrible feeling to be in, and eventually it's like you're treading in treacle, and you're walking around in treacle, and you just can't get anywhere. And it always reminds me of cartoons, Tom and Jerry, where they're running and running and running, but they're not actually going anywhere. They're just spinning their legs, and they're not going anywhere. And that's what happens when you're mentally and physically tired. And it happens all the time. And we've got no break again. We play Thursday. Are we at home or away Thursday? I can't quite remember.
We have a quick look. We break up on the
at home.
I think we're at home.
I think we're at home. Yeah. I think I've had my ticket. I'll have to look. And then we've got another.
Yeah, we're at home Thursday.
We've got another
away.
difficult game.
Home Thursday. Home to Southampton on Sunday. Away to Betis. Brighton's been postponed, and then we've got Fulham on the 19th. Then we break up.
I mean, I've said this before. There's a reason why teams don't win quads. It's nigh on impossible unless you're playing in a league like France, or you're playing in the Spanish league, where there's maybe 1 or 2 teams that will give you some kind of problems. We've got 12 teams that will give you problems in the Premier League. Southampton will give us an issue because it's very, very difficult. So, fatigue and that just come into it. I thought Liverpool did turn up. They were up for it. It's going to be interesting. But I will say I thought the game was interesting overall. I thought it was an interesting game of football. I thought we did as good as we could in the first half. And do you know something? Here's a funny thing. If you put a microphone under Bruno's nose tomorrow and asked him 24 hours after the game what happened in that second half, it'd be a complete loss to tell you. He wouldn't know what to say. Yeah. And that does happen on occasions. So
yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, going to be a very, very difficult day tomorrow. Was there any? I appreciate it's very difficult to dissect this kind of thing, really, and everybody in particular was poor. But was there anyone in particular for you, Fred, that really just wasn't at the races there? And again, I know it's a very, very difficult one to answer, but if you can,
I won't pick out. Like I said, I won't pick out one individual. But one thing I will say is I wasn't a fan personally of Bruno on the left. I think you just completely take out his strengths out of the game instantly.
Yeah, he would have been there for the taking. He's definitely their weak link, and I'm really surprised that we didn't have Rashford on the left.
Who's that? Trent, sorry, is that
Trent? Yeah, Trent.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, Bruno was occupying half channel spaces on the left, and that was giving Trent so much room. And they ended up, their fullbacks were just playing so high, and our defence couldn't cope. The fullbacks were getting doubled up on and pinned back. So I don't think that worked. I didn't like Weghorst in the 10 in this game. I don't think he offered that much of an outlet, for example. And Anthony, I said it, as you know, Mark, I said it on day one after the Arsenal game. He hasn't got a right foot, and that's a real concern because it's just a one trick pony. Sorry to be quite extreme in that phrasing, but he's very, very easy to defend against. You know he's going to come in. You know he's going to try and put it in the far corner. He needs to develop that. And you compare his polar opposite to Salah today. He was absolutely sensational. Their best player by far. His first goal or second goal was an absolute thunderbolt with his right foot. You'd say, okay, they're similar sort of players, but you can see the differences, in quality. So I don't think the front three was the correct one. However, we're just picking or clutching straws here. Everyone was off their game today. Like I said, there was the running was less. We were short, 1 yard short every single time. I think potentially a little bit of complacency as well as mental fatigue and physical fatigue. Like I said earlier, we won a cup last week. We won the FA Cup midweek after going down to West Ham. This was our first league game in a while, and also you've got to remember the pace of the Premier League is very different to your cup competitions as well as your Europa League competitions. Even though you're facing the likes of Barcelona, so it's just a bad day in the office. It just shows that one half of football, like Steve mentioned, I think actually first half we weren't actually that bad. We came with the game plan. We were disruptive, I think, in that we were taking our time with certain goal kicks, and you could tell I was sort of having an impact on the fans and their players. It was only really until that first goal went in that it just capitulated. And it just shows that there's no easy game in the Premier League and English football. And one half of a bad performance in one half led to 6 goals, and it's as easy as that. It's like I said earlier, it's just unfortunately it came against our biggest rivals, but you just got to look forward, move on to the next game, and I think we've got the type of manager who's not going to let any of these players get away with it, in any more games than this one. So I'd expect to see a completely different performance next Thursday and next Sunday against Southampton.
Yeah, absolutely right. Hopefully so. Otherwise, we're in for a bit of trouble. Andrew in the comments, thanks for joining us, buddy. Casemiro's concerning today. He seemed to have hurt himself early in the game. Passing was very poor. Absolutely was. I said to the boys in the background, and I know it seems crazy at that point when you're 1-0 down, but to take him off, I felt like he clearly did have an issue today, and I think that when he doesn't play, not that it's a one-man team, it really does affect us greatly, and it did today. You were talking about Ten Hag. He's come out and said a couple of things. He said you can lose a game, but not in this way. The second half is unprofessional. It can't happen. We have to talk about it. Sean, going forward, obviously we need a bit of a bounce back. He'll probably get them to watch it, as he says. But what do we change much up for the next game? Do we rest some players for Betis? Because I do think that's a bit of an issue. What would you do going forward?
Do you know what? I don't know. Is there real need for much change, to be honest? I think I agree completely with the points that are made. I mean, bad day at the office. Clearly the players are tired, to what Stu was talking about, and they actually behaved like I do when I'm tired. They got cranky. That's what happened. They got cranky. And, Shaw lashed out maybe a little bit. We saw it from Bruno. We saw it from a lot of players. And I don't think that Ten Hag changes much going forward. And the reason being, I think that these guys will be embarrassed by the performance today. And they'll want to show what they're really made of going forward. I don't think that... I think it was a battering, and I think we can all face that. But at the same time, I think these guys don't like that, and they will hold themselves accountable, hopefully, going forward. I think Ten Hag will certainly hold them accountable. And I think that they need a professional performance midweek and maybe over the weekend. And even Gary Neville kind of said during the game that they have built up a little bit of credit, to be fair. With all the performances they have been grinding out, and even Klopp called them a result machine during the week. So, look, there's no point in talking about the result. I think we're all as feeling the same on this, but I think going forward, I think that it will actually maybe benefit us in a strange way. Like a world champion fighter that gets beaten and by an underdog challenger, and they come back and they batter him after that. In the rematch kind of thing. I think that's going to be something similar in Manchester United and Old Trafford, and I hope so on Thursday as well, because I'll be over at the game. So I hope that that's the game where we see some fireworks. So yeah,
I hope for you that's the case as well, buddy. You enjoy your time. I think you made a really good point there, actually. About probably need a little bit of humbling, probably a different team where we have a lot more leadership. I think the leadership wasn't there today, but I think these players will be able to accept responsibility. And I think that, rewind a year when we had 9 goals against us in 2 games, I don't think there was anybody in that squad at the time that was ready to accept that and to move on and to take that in their stride. And I think that's a big difference. And I do believe that's
when you talk about humbling, and I agree with that point. Do you think that maybe the ball playing and the fuckery in the first half, maybe Liverpool took that as a mark of disrespect and brought it out in the second half and went to town?
Maybe, but I don't know. Looking at the game, for me, I think that we seemed to... We were okay. I think Stu was right for maybe 20 minutes. It took us about 15 minutes or so to get into the game. But I don't believe that actually we really could create any stride for ourselves. I don't believe that we could grab hold of the ball, string a few passes together and gain any confidence at all. I don't think that anybody would have gone in and necessarily been overconfident at any point. I think they all looked incredibly nervous. And I think Liverpool did, to be honest. I think that nobody was ready to kind of go for it. As soon as we made a couple of the mistakes in the second half of the goals, I think that was only then where Liverpool were like, right, we've got this now. They've dropped their heads,
Yeah, the first goal made a big difference, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think United got were unlucky in a lot of points as well. Breaking balls and things like that. You just all seem to fall to Liverpool feet. And I actually remarked during the game, if these lads fell into a bag of tits, they'd come out sucking their thumbs. That kind of way. It was just, they were never going to catch the loose ball or anything like that. It just, like, yes, it was poor, but it was also unlucky as well. Nothing went right. They didn't get a single card that they could play. That's the way it felt to me anyway.
Yeah, the first goal was quite interesting, really, because I saw a couple of comments on Twitter and Dalot was, followed. Was it Robertson? Dalot followed Robertson. Well, he's supposed to follow him. That's his man. He's supposed to do it. When you look at where Fred had completely lost Gapco. He was also turning towards his left rather than his right side. Because he was turning towards his left, he slipped, and the ball came in perfectly into Gapco's. That point as well, when Varane was coming to close Gapco down, he thought Gapco was going to go to his left, to Gapco's left, Varane's right, to get the cross in. But he didn't. He did what every striker did, and he went round him. Varane should have just stood up and moved across slightly to the right and forced him to the left.
That's very similar to Garnacho midweek against West Ham.
Very similar, Mark, to when I criticised Varane up at Newcastle last year. Very similar. If you remember when Newcastle scored right back, and I said what Varane should have done, and he would have not conceded a goal. Exactly the same today. If you square him up, you move slightly to the right, it blocks off, or it makes the swerve a lot more difficult because you got one more whip on it. Yes, you're opening up yourself, by the way, to penetration in the box, but at least you can get across. If you dummy to go right straight away, you've got no way in a million years are you coming left. It's just not going to happen. And that is what did it. Was De Gea at fault? I don't know. I'm not a goalkeeper, so I wouldn't like to say. But there was, Liverpool didn't particularly open this up brilliantly. There was just a few errors, but giving Dalot
we were making a lot of errors
because he went to track his man is not the right thing to do. He had to do that. Because what happens if he doesn't follow Robertson and he just goes back? Who's going to make the play on Robertson? Nobody. So Robertson can penetrate a bit deeper. So it's one of those. It was a difficult thing.
Yeah, there's been a lot of comments. I think when people get reactionary and disappointed, it's very easy to kind of pinpoint particular things.
That's why I opened up with my remarks about.
And I'm pleased just to make the point. I've asked every single one of you to point out a particular player for that very reason, and none of you did. So thank you for that. Absolutely right. It's important. It was a poor team performance today. There could be a million things that was wrong with it. Fatigue, just not at it. All the luck going against us, whatever that might be. But fundamentally, we didn't grab anything as a team, and there was no player on the pitch that was trying to go against that. Just to come to a few more things that Ten Hag said, it was not about one or two players, it was the whole team. I saw 11 individuals losing their heads. Yeah, absolutely spot on. Not sticking to the plan. That is unprofessional, and that is not Manchester United. We've let the fans down, and that's what makes me the most annoyed. We have to reset. We've bounced back many times before. We will bounce back. Probably the worst performance I've seen for a while, and certainly since the City game. But we have to. You're right. It's awful that it's Liverpool, but fundamentally we've been so damn good. No wonder we feel so terrible, because it's not just an absolute drubbing. It's because none of us probably expected that today at all, not even close. But there you go. Right, we're going to come to ratings. As I said, I'm going to make it a relatively short one.
I wouldn't bother.
I've got to do saying. Stu.
Can I just say there before you do the ratings, Mark, that there's one positive to take out of this for me, and it was something I was worried about, because Ten Hag is so good tactically. Yeah, they were beaten well, but they weren't found out. They were just poor. You know what I mean? And if a team is found out, it means that they're vulnerable in the future. And I don't think Man United are going to be vulnerable in the future as a result of that performance. It was a poor performance. They got beaten. It's an isolated incident. And, we'd be hoping it doesn't happen again. So I think that, if there was a tactical, something that Ten Hag was doing tactically that got found out by Klopp today, then we're in serious trouble. But
yeah, I think
not so.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. One thing that I was surprised at, certainly at the beginning of the game, was Dalot playing. This isn't me going in on Dalot at all, but I thought that, after the performances we had, we needed our kind of best 11 on current form. Aaron Wan-Bissaka starting at right back, that was a bit of a shock to me. Fred, would you prefer to see him today? I know hindsight's a beautiful thing, whatever, but would you have started him over Dalot?
Yes, I would. Yeah, and I said it to a few friends before the game. I think it was a bit of a shame to see Wan-Bissaka get dropped. I think in these sort of games you need to play him, especially I think Liverpool's main threat in recent games have been on their left side with their Núñez and Gakpo rotation. Dalot. Look, I think Dalot's come a very long way since previous seasons. He's there's no doubt that he's improved a lot under the manager, but you do think whether he has the potential to be like a title-winning fullback, and I do question that, I must admit. He's usually lauded for his attacking and his crossing, and I don't think we've seen enough of that this year. There was one instance, the Bruno header that just went marginally wide. Yeah. That's what we need to see more of, him overlapping Anthony, getting in the byline and putting those types of balls in, but we don't see it enough. And he's good at joining the midfield. Defensively, there's question marks. However, in the Old Trafford reverse tie, he was brilliant. I just remember pictures of him and Martinez and Varane cheering every block, every tackle they made. But I think after the World Cup, he's just not come back. He's come back a slightly different player. He's not as good as he was prior to the World Cup. And I think Wan-Bissaka has cemented, or should have cemented, his place in the first 11 instead of him. I think we can upgrade on him. But saying that, look, I'm not going to say he's the fault or the reason why we lost today. It's a coercive team. responsibility. However, I personally do have question marks on Dallo. I have for a while.
I have to disagree with you on that point, and bringing this comment up as well. I disagree with this as well. For me, before the World Cup, I absolutely agree with you. Since he's come back, not been as good, picked up an injury, and I think he's just still very rusty. He hasn't had a lot of minutes. I actually think he's probably the most improved player in the team, other than Rashford. I think defensively he's much, much better. Wasn't on it today. Hasn't been on it since the World Cup. And I think prior to the World Cup, for me, it would have been Trippier and him for player of the season for right back, personally. And I think that he's improved massively, and I think that he would be in a title-winning team, and I think that he's a good player to have around. It just wasn't on it today. Yeah, you want to say something, Stu?
With Dallo, yeah, it's a difficult one for me because I've been heavily critical about Dallo for a long, long time, as you well know, with his positional sense. And even when Wan-Bissaka was going through his tough period, I always maintained he was our best right back. For me, right now, I would have started with Wan-Bissaka today. However, I get why Van Gaal pushed Dallo in there, because he felt he would offer an attacking attribute, which he didn't. And I think with Dallo's point of view, prior to the World Cup, I think Marc's right. I do think he was playing a level of football we hadn't seen before. And he was maybe starting to show something kind of the form that got Mourinho. I think it was Mourinho that bought him, wasn't it? Did he come under Mourinho?
Yes, he did, yeah.
Yeah, and I can kind of see that. He's had this niggling injury since the World Cup, and I don't think he's recovered. I think he's injured still. And I think he's probably not being 100% honest with the physios and the medical team, because I think he's injured, because there is a completely different person that's pulling on that shirt right now than what was at the beginning of the season. So today, I definitely would have played Wan-Bissaka. At least he would have stopped their penetration from either Nunes or Gapco, because they kind of like flipped, didn't they? But again, Luke Shaw, when Gapco's coming at you, just pop him into Rosette. Just off you go into Rosette, mate, and see what you do when you come back. See if you want to come again, because I'll put you back in Rosette again. Sometimes you have to do this in football. You stop playing the game for 5 or 10 minutes, and you just concentrate all your efforts on smashing your opponent, and then see what happens. And it's up to them then to respond to you, not for you to respond to them. They have to respond to you. And I think if we did that, if Wan-Bissaka would have done that with Nunes, he would have put him under pressure. He would have made him answer that question: what are you going to do, mate? Because next time you go, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to keep sliding at you. And then what are you going to do? And eventually he'll wilt. And Luke Shaw should have made Gapco wilt, because when somebody takes hold of the game like he did, and Salah, Martinez, to be fair to Martinez, he tried. He got the elbow on him beautifully. But Salah said, I don't care. I'll just get on with it. And he did.
Yeah, some players just have the quality, don't they? They
that's
can
right.
Just, but you've got to keep going. I mean, do you remember what I found interesting, Stu, was the Wan-Bissaka? Do you remember last minute when he made that tackle against Zaha when we played Palace? And then Zaha said afterwards, I looked over my shoulder, saw it as Aaron, and you put that fear in attackers' heads, and they know that before the game, and they have to try something different. And some the Salahs in the world, they just have the quality that they can oversee that and bat it off. But Wan-Bissaka, I think he's the best player in the defender in the league at running back to goal, and that he would have chased down Nunes. He probably would have chased down Gakpo for the first goal, and it's just one of those things. It's horses for courses as well. Some games Dalot's going to be better. Some games Wan-Bissaka's going to be better.
Ifs, but
I don't recall Evan saying it prevent a 7-0 defeat.
No, he did. Look, Evan is a good lad. I've given him and Sean a lot of shit over the season for being Chelsea fans, and this is their time to shine today.
Oh, is he a Chelsea fan?
He's not even a Liverpool fan.
He's not even exactly. It is funny.
In that case, I retract that statement. He's well within his rights to have a pop. Fair enough.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anyway, we won't do ratings today. It's going to be shit show.
Well, you can only do zero. You can't give them a rating, can you?
No, well, this is it. So I think we're gonna tie it up there. Sean, one last question for you. I thought Sabitzer, when he came on today, looked our best player, and I know that's crazy, but I feel like he was really trying to win the balls. He played a couple of good passes. Casemiro maybe needing a rest. Would you maybe see him start perhaps on Thursday next week?
It depends on if there's an injury being carried there. I think, you know what, I think having a reaction to a match like that so soon after it, the wound is still wide open. And yeah, look, I like Sabitzer. I think I'm on the same page as you with that, Mark.
Yep.
But no, I prefer Casemiro, and it's as simple as that. And I think you do as well, to be fair.
I do, yes.
Yeah. But no, I don't think unless there's an injury there, I don't think he changes that. I mean, if it's not broken, don't fix it, I think, in that respect. But I'd like to see them play together. Although Fred played well in the first half.
My question, to be fair, should have been over Fred, actually.
I'll tell you something, lads. If I was Sabitzer and Steve McLaren turned around and said, "You're on," I'd have hobbled down the stairs. I'd have faked an injury coming down those stairs at that time.
I thought, Stu, you weren't a poser.
No, it's not that. Let me tell you something. It's very, very difficult coming off the bench in most games. Coming off the bench when you're getting absolutely battered.
Imagine.
Impossible. It's impossible to do anything. And so you can only do what Sabitzer did, just run around and try and do something, because it's absolutely impossible. So I would have hobbled down. I mean, boss, my knee's gone. So I've got to go, boss.
You'd have hobbled down and then cut the little ponytail off, wouldn't you, Steve? You missed that one from your description.
I would have cut his ponytail. Actually,
Fernandez.
And here's something else which is really interesting. Harvey Elliott played a bit of a blinder, didn't he?
I can't. I'm not a massive fan of him at all.
No,
I don't think he's a particularly great player at all. I think he did great things coming through. Did when he was out on loan, but we made him look excellent today, and I was frustrated by that.
And again, you've got to get hold of that, and
They all do it. It's just we were all awful. They looked amazing. Every shot they had.
There was one part in the game that absolutely summed it up for me, and that was it was about 10 minutes to go, or maybe 12 minutes to go, or something like that. And Bruno was clearing the ball.
I knew you were going to say it.
Yeah. Fucking that idiot, that moron Trent Alexander comes pegging around and slides to put out a throw in. And I'm thinking to myself, Bruno, do me a favour. Will you jump up and just land on him? Just land on him with your studs. You won't do that again, will you, Trent? And then wander off. And instead, I mean, what was Trent doing? I mean, that would have just...
I think as well, Stu, that'd be the only way Bruno's going to get a rest in this team, because there is no way. One thing I didn't like, I must say, is I don't think they showed it on Sky Sports anyway on screen. Apparently, he wanted to come off, and he signalled to the bench when Rashford came off. Yeah, which isn't. I'm a huge fan of Bruno, but you can't do that.
No, I can't do that. I didn't see that actually, and
they talked about it, didn't they?
Poor mentality.
They spoke about it. Yeah,
Ten Hag dropped him for that.
What is he? Yeah, I think he'll get a drubbing for that, and he didn't come off in the end, did he? So you just know that you're not going to come off.
Making a point.
Ten Hag said tough, whatever. He probably, in fact, Ten Hag probably just looked away. Probably didn't say.
So there's where Sabitzer fits in midweek.
There you go. Then there you go.
Yeah.
Case closed. Right,
I think it wouldn't be.
I
think it wouldn't be the worst thing, Bruno, having a small rest, just mentally, if not physically.
Yeah, I know we haven't really talked about it before, but I think as much as we need number 9, when we're playing well and when we've got Bruno on song, or at least sort of providing a bit or doing pulling strings. When it doesn't go that way, there is a gaping hole there that can't be filled by anybody else, and I think that probably is another position we need to look at. We forget about it.
I think you're absolutely right.
We're doing well.
You do. Actually, totally forgot. It's something I wanted to raise actually, which I've completely forgot. I think someone mentioned at the beginning you wanted to see Rashford against Trent. You can't do that because we haven't got a striker, despite all the money we've spent. And I know we have got Veghorst. Maybe it was the wrong decision playing a little bit deeper, but that is a big problem. You're taking probably our biggest attacking threat, or outlet, Rashford on the left, and you're having to play him centrally just because there's no alternative. And it has to be the first area that we address this summer, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think, who are we to say? But I think maybe, as I said, hindsight, we would have maybe started it a little bit better. Rashford on the left, maybe Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Maybe next time we'll see. But listen, guys, thank you. As I said, I really appreciate you coming today and sharing this pain that I'm feeling. And thanks to everyone in the comments. But you're all right, and this is why I love getting you on, because it's not about being reactionary. Sometimes it is what it is. You have to look at the facts, and it just wasn't for us today. But hopefully that doesn't continue into next week, and then we have a decent-ish also performance against Bessis on Thursday. Thanks to everyone for joining in today. I hope your evenings, as I said, will get better, and I hope they are for you. And we will see you next time.